welcome to the latest episode of the BFG podcast. Today, we are honoured to have the coach of the Women's Phoenix A-League team, Gemma Lewis, on the show. Welcome, Gemma, as well as Denise and Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This has been a long time coming, Gemma. It's really good to have you on the show finally.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for persevering with me and finally getting me on here.
If I could just open by asking, how delighted are you to sign your new extension with the club? And are you able to reveal whether there was any interest from other clubs? And if there was, why did you choose to remain with the Phoenix?
I'm super excited to stay with the Phoenix. To be honest, it was kind of in the pipeline, early days from when we were in the season. So there wasn't really, we didn't really look anywhere else because we were kind of locked in pretty early. Almost before we even finished up in the season. So it was always kind of, I felt like I was always going to go back to the Phoenix at least for another season to give it a real shot and have a home season rather than the disrupted season that we did have in the first year. So I think I was always going to go back. I'm pretty excited about it.
And are you looking forward to coming home with the girls, whatever girls you may end up having?
Yeah, definitely. Like it almost feels like it's still a new, like a first season for us because there's still so many firsts that we haven't got to experience yet. So there's a lot of excitement about being able to play in front of a home crowd, and just being in Wellington and being able to get in touch with kind of like the fans and show some more visibility that we could within the community is like actually really exciting for us. So we didn't get to experience a lot of that in Australia, and I know there was a lot of support back home in New Zealand for us, but we didn't necessarily get to experience a lot of that firsthand. So we're all pretty excited.
Okay, I'm going to open to Jonathan and Denise now. They've got some questions for you.
Hi, Gemma. So
Hi.
we are super excited to have this team back in New Zealand. I mean, it's incredibly important to have professional soccer here, and I'm totally thrilled. So when I asked people like what they wanted to ask you, they were like, how did you become who you are? How did you become the expert of New Zealand youth football and then transfer that to the U20 and become the Phoenix coach? I mean, you're not from New Zealand originally.
No, not at all. I have been here for I think 8 or 9 years now, though. So and in that time, I've spent my whole time working in football in New Zealand. So I think from the time I worked for Auckland Football as a football development officer there, and then I was also head of women's football, and then started coaching the National Women's League team in Auckland. So I've had a lot of time going through the system of working in, NTCs when we used to have them, and the Federation Talent Centres when we used to have them. So I've done a lot of experience in like youth football for the last 8 years in New Zealand, and then that kind of ended up getting me into New Zealand football. And since then, I've worked in age groups, I've worked in youth development, and worked with the Future Ferns program. So I think I had a very good understanding of the female talent in New Zealand, and it really helped me, I guess, to be the right fit for this team, for especially the first maybe 2 seasons, to kind of push through that talent that we do have coming through in New Zealand.
Jonathan?
So how would you describe your philosophy, like your philosophy of coaching and leading these young women?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's evolved over a lot of time, to be honest. Like you kind of go on coaching courses and you get a lot of like expert advice, and this is how you should do it, or this is how you could do it. As you go higher up in the advanced pathway and you start to get into, I did my A license, you kind of get to have a little bit more ownership on, there's not one way of doing it, and now you're considered to be more of an expert and can start to put, I guess, your own spin on how things work for you. I had lots of experiences in the women's game where I felt like coaching females was different for me, and different in a multitude of reasons. Sometimes it can be a lot more challenging because they ask so many questions and want to know every single detail under the sun. But also, I felt like you can get this loyalty and buy-in, and like if there's trust and a good relationship there, they would run through a brick wall for you. Whereas when I've coached in the men's game and in the boys' game, like I found some trainings a lot easier because they're kind of like, just tell me what to do. I want to get started. I want to go. Like, I don't really, I'm not taking too much attention. I just want to get going. I'll figure it out for myself and I'll trial and error and it'll be sorted. But then, I don't know that I kind of got as much of the relationship and got as much as the buy-in and coaching in the youth boys space. So, I think that kind of shaped how I coached a little bit because the teams that I had success with early on, so with Auckland National Women's League team, when I coached them, we won for the first time in, I think it was like 9 seasons. But I originally was so confused why they didn't win more, because ultimately they had a very, very good playing pool to pick out of. And then kind of realized that ultimately a lot of it was to do with kind of like that environment that was created, and that coach relationship as well, in terms of I was able to kind of give the players ownership in what they did, and lead a little bit more through influence rather than this is how I want to play, this is exactly how we're going to do things. It was creating an environment where they had more buy-in, more say, more ownership in what they were doing. So then there was a lot of trust in the relationship, and it meant that when they were going onto the field, there was a lot more, I guess, caring what they were doing, because it was more about them and who they were and how they wanted to be represented as a player and a team, which created a lot more, I guess, like ownership in what they were doing. But then they were willing to kind of put a lot of hard work into it because it represented, I guess, who they were as a player and as a team. So I think those sorts of experience started to shape how I coached and how I felt like I got good, I guess, results or good development from players, because of that lead, I guess, through influence, through bringing the players into the fold rather than saying, this is exactly how I want to play. I have a playing philosophy, and you would have seen a lot of that in the Phoenix. It's quite aggressive, pressing, high risk. We're quite brave when we play as well, in terms of we play out from the back a lot. We try and be quite expansive in how we play. I like that because I think it's exciting football. But at the same time, you can't play that style of football unless your players buy into it, because it's hard to press for 90 minutes and be aggressive in the way you play. It's hard to play high risk football when we ask them to transition and defensively run a lot. So they have to have ownership in that as well, because otherwise it just doesn't work. So I can try and explain what I believe and what I want to do, but I have to have the players to match that, and they also have to buy in and feel like they have ownership in it. So we would talk about things. We would talk about, is it realistic? Is it not? We might play certain games and figure out, where the risk points are. Do we feel like we can do it? We might have 2 games in the space of 3 days. Like, do we feel like we can press like 100% in both of those games? So there was a lot of give and take. And I just feel like in my coaching philosophy, bringing the players into the fold and creating an environment like that helps in terms of getting the buy-in, the output, the development, and the ownership in what I do. That's a long-winded answer, but hopefully that kind of answers it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we've seen, I mean, even overnight, we've seen the positives that come out of that, with 4 of the girls or ladies over in, playing for the Ferns against, first Norway and now Wales. And, Kate got a run last night and Grace was on the field. So whatever secret sauce and things you've got cooking in the next camp is obviously overflowing to give them opportunities at that far greater level.
Yeah. Did you see this crossed to hand?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
It's so close, eh? No, that was a win-win game for me, because either way I was like, Wales winning, New Zealand winning. I was kind of like, this is going to go well for me either way. So
exactly. I do miss Fishlock on the field, though.
So did I. I thought that was a big loss for them, that she's so influential for them. So I was, as soon as I heard she wasn't playing, I thought it was going to be maybe a bit of an undercooked team against New Zealand.
I saw her play a couple weeks ago against the San Diego Wave, and that was just She's so cool.
She's outrageous, especially for a player. Like, she's so small, and people like used to underestimate her, but like she's actually a beast.
She's incredible. I mean, I'm going to ask it now since we're talking about like great players. You know, are we going to see more Ferns? Are we going to see more imports? Anyone from the NWSL? Like,
from what you can talk about it.
I mean, everyone wants to know, like, what is it? So let's go back a little bit. So New Zealand, the Phoenix has some, you know, they have to give up a New Zealander to get an international spot. I mean, that sucks. Can you talk about that and your dilemmas right now about trying to recruit and what in general is the philosophy? Is it like I need to develop or I need to win? Because New Zealand needs both, right?
Yeah.
You need the confidence, but you also, I don't know. I don't know where I would go if I were.
Yeah, it's extremely tough. And the dilemma's hard. Like, I keep pushing back on it, to be honest. Like, I keep asking for revisions of the regulation because I don't necessarily believe it to be fair. I also think it really hamstrings us now that we're based in New Zealand as well. Like, it's so hard for us to attract Australian players to come and play for us when we have a salary cap. We're asking them to move countries. The league isn't long enough yet that it's fully professionalized. So lots of people have part-time jobs or study or do things within Australia. So it becomes so hard for us even to get Australians to come over and play for us. We've also got a new team that's come into the league. So now we're all fighting over the same players. And the depth in Australia isn't hugely different to the depth in New Zealand. So we're starting to really kind of, I guess, test the quality of what's going to be coming in, which I struggle with because I feel like we want to improve the league without diluting the league. So whereas I feel like at the moment, especially with the clash of the seasons with the NWSL and things like that, I think the more expansion is good, but I think it needs to be done in a way where we can still get access to good quality players and we can still keep the league competitive. I think the league in its own right, if it expands and starts to get into a full season, will be competitive because, you can push some of the European leagues, maybe not the big ones, but you can maybe push the Norways, the Denmarks, the Swedens to have like this really good league because do you want to play in Norway in the middle of winter or do you want to come play in Australia for however long? I feel like it sells itself.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like they can expand and they can run with it, and I think they would attract players if it was a fully professionalized league. But right now it's kind of 5 months. It's hard to attract the players that you need to, and this regulation for us really makes it hard. Right now we'll be squeezing kind of 13 players into 11 because we had scholarship spots, but now they kind of filter into the full spots. And then, we do have interest from, a couple of firms and things, which is great for us. It's what we want. But now we're going to be, trying to squeeze kind of 14, 15 New Zealanders into 11 spots like that. That starts to get really tough. It's a good thing. It's what we want. But it would make such a difference if we didn't have the regulations in place. We don't. If we then decide to take up a visa spot, then we're pushing out another New Zealander down. So it gets really, really difficult. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with saying you won't expect to see any visa players this season whilst we have the regulation because we're already going to lose some good quality players. To the point where, I'm going to have to start picking up the phone to other A-League clubs and being like, will you take this person or who will you take? And like that's really tough for us. It's great to have more New Zealanders playing, but we're just passing on the players that we're creating and giving them to other teams to try and make sure we can, I guess, find that good edge of still developing key players that we think have the potential to be, huge players in the future, but also add in that experience that we lacked in the first season. So yeah, it's one that we're continually banging our heads against the wall for. I think it's going to make it, and it is making it really challenging to recruit the right Australian player that we need. Where it's really hard. With salary caps and things, you're offering similar salaries to other clubs. They can just stay in Australia, be close to family, be able to work and do their normal life. So it's really hard for us to bring in like more experienced Australian players to add to what we're already creating. So yeah, it's a bit of a headache, and we're trying to find the balance. But yes, we're hoping to add a couple of ferns to the mix that will help push the team forward. We believed in what we created last year. It's not going to be throwing everything out. We believe in the young players that we're developing. I think some of the young players we work with are going to be crazy players if they keep progressing. Kate's playing for the Ferns at 18, and looking like it doesn't even bother her. She's going to be a baller. So we know we have those players in our group, and we trust them. And we believe that they can win. They might be 18, but we believe they have the quality. They just need the time and the experience. So we're not going to throw all of that out, everything that we worked on. I think people saw the shift we made in just one season. And we can do that again with the time that we've got now. And we're training with these players every day at the moment. That's the difference. Is like the Kate Taylors have been with us now training since we finished. So we have got a leg up in that respect of working with the players every day, for the most part, the New Zealand-based players. But now it's about we definitely need kind of at least two, if not more, like good experienced players to add value to the group and really kind of accelerate the girls' development that we believe are going to be really good players.
Well, let me know who you want me to throw over your shoulder, and bring home. I could take Ali Raleigh. I could take Kate.
Perfect.
Yeah. But she's always expressed that she's wanted to come back and play in the league. I mean, she's repeatedly say it's just the NWSL league has gotten so long.
Yeah. I know there's been talks of trying to align the seasons again, but I don't think the NWSL have any interest in that whatsoever. So, and I get it, they're expanding in their own right, and obviously one of the biggest leagues in the world. So that's why I think, the A-League needs to kind of forget about that now. Like, it was what it was when we needed it, but now just go fully expand, and you'll be able to compete with the European leagues in your own right. So I think it's kind of embrace the fact that might not work out so well anymore, but if you fully professionalize, it'll take a couple of years, but the league will become very competitive.
Yeah.
And by the way, I forgot to mention that Denise is actually joining us from the States right now. So
what time is it over there for you?
she's on holiday. So.
It's 4:20, so
nice.
Perfectly fine. I'm just I live in Topal, and then I'm visiting America, and it's a blast because here's my shirt where Jill Ellis signed it the other day.
It's incredible. Those expansion teams have been absolutely amazing, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I knew the wave was going to be good. I'm a big Courage fan because of Urseg, but it's a lot of fun to be at these games. And so I guess, the three of us are super fans, right? What can we do to help pump up this coming season? I mean, that's why we're here talking about this, because we love women's soccer, and we want to make sure like New Zealand gets it, and has a blast. And us three.
Like, in all honesty, like the visibility and kind of what you're doing is amazing. I think the continuation of that, and then even like for us, it's like building the brand of like our players as well, giving them exposure, and kind of showing the world what they can do as well. And then the other thing is like we want people coming and watching games. We want people understanding what we do and being able to get behind the team, and we want to give back in that way as well, and have the players give back and give their visibility in areas where they can really have an effect, because we've already seen it. We weren't there to experience it as much, but even the last season, it felt like there was a lot of like momentum behind us. Our first home game, or the game that we had that was on free to air, was the most watched game of the Wellington Phoenix for the whole season. That's including the men's final. Like, so the people are gonna get behind the team, and there was a few other games throughout the season that were more watched than the men's. So I think there's like appetite there for it, and I think we have this unique opportunity with like the 2023 World Cup as well, where football's about to blow up. I don't think New Zealand really know what's about to happen. I don't think they really understand the concept of what is going to happen when this Women's World Cup comes here, because it's huge. And I think, I think what you're already doing is incredible, and I think it's just whatever we can do to keep that visibility and be able to almost give back to the youth coming through as well. Get more players playing like in those clubs. Like ultimately, that's what we need to keep like the momentum building, to keep players coming through. Like we want the women's game in New Zealand to compete against netball. And have those players coming through that don't start to choose netball or hockey anymore and start to really invest in football. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the big dream for us is we want to be like the number one participated sport, so we can really push and have more than one professionalized team and really start to challenge things moving forwards.
I'll do a little. I'll just jump in here and do a little pat on the back for Holly and the team over there who were, little corner of yellow.
Yeah.
They're also in our Flight of the Next group, so we're hoping that we can get Holly in on a call to have a chat with you at some stage in the future too, Gemma, because I know she'd really appreciate that.
It was incredible having their support over there.
Yeah. One of the really cool things that we have with our group is we've noticed we've got a lot of the parents and relatives of the players who were over there are in the group, and they, like Zoe's dad, he reached out, we'd have a chat, or Alyssa's parents, and there's like a whole lot of different people who have joined our group, saying that what we try to provide is a very uplifting and encouraging space to talk about the players in the game. So again, having you here today is pretty fantastic. And our goal long term is to keep maintaining that momentum and being there both for yourself and the girls, but also the Phoenix long term.
Yeah, that's incredible. Honestly, like that stuff like that makes it huge. And even some of the girls, like they'd get sent some messages and stuff like that, and like it would make such a difference. Especially there was like, I remember there was one period I think we had like a few tough losses in a row, like early days. And like one of the girls that at her local club, like a parent sent her like a big message and just talked about how like her daughter and her team would come over and watch the games, and like talked about like that the result didn't matter, they were still just so happy to like see people they knew playing and everything. So like stuff like that, like, and the girls would like share it around the group on a tough day and stuff, and it would make like a huge difference. So in that, we appreciate what you do. It even when we were over there, it was big for us.
Yeah, New Zealand loved you. I mean, it's really cool. I'm really, that might not happen in America.
No, exactly. I'm not sure you get embraced so much when you have however many losses and end up coming bottom of the table. But we were pretty lucky with the understanding, I guess, of what we were going through.
Yeah.
So what I would like to ask is that how difficult is it as a coach? This is going back a bit, I'm afraid. But how is it as a coach having a lot of restrictions as opposed to the men? Because I use this word a lot, what we call discrepancies, because I've noticed a lot of discrepancies in the men's and the women's game a bigger part into the men's game. Like, for example, you had issues with the goalkeeper, that whole like debacle with that.
Yeah.
And then you had the issue with the game being rained off against Adelaide, I believe it was. Whereas if it was a men's game, you wouldn't have those play restrictions so much to a degree, and you would have probably the ability for the men to play a bit longer. So, how is that for you to have to navigate for the coach?
Yeah, it is really tough, and to be honest as well, like I feel like the Phoenix share like a shared view with me in terms of like we want to progress the women's game. The Phoenix itself and their ownership talk about trying to get a move in to get our girls on full year contracts regardless of the league and trying to professionalize, and I love that. investment from them to want to do that. But the constraints for me, or the pushback, is always a little bit with the league, I guess, in terms of like there is like a staged approach now to trying to start to bridge the equality gap and start to try and flesh it out and get it more competitive with the men's A-League. And I think in Australia especially, the women's game is actually really well liked. Like, look at how the following behind the Matildas and things like that, they have this really unique opportunity where they can really invest in the women's game and they can get something out of it commercially and through viewership. I think if they do it in the right way. We're right now, even with the salary caps that we face and things like that, we can do a 5-week preseason. That's nothing in a professional game. 5 weeks to be prepared is that's start time. If you want any longer, you can kind of work towards getting it, but then that can tip you over the salary cap because you're working within such a restriction. So this is stuff that the men don't have to deal with as much because their salary cap is absolutely huge. So it's things that like that are a struggle in terms of like, okay, well, we're trying to be a professionalized team, but we're going to bring players in 5 weeks before our first game. That doesn't put us much different to what last season was. But we're trying to, we're trying to give our players a good enough package that they can live and be well off. So anything else tips us over into areas that we can't battle with. So it's tough. And then, when we're in season, I feel like, again, like the length of the season, the differences within pay parity and things like that is huge. And stuff like that is stuff we're still pushing back on. I definitely think there's appetite and things that are going to move towards, they've got the CBA agreement in place, they've got a staged approach, and I feel like they're doing the right things. I just wish it was a little bit quicker, but I feel like it'll get there in the end. But yeah, it is tough in that respect, but I do feel lucky in terms of coming in with the Phoenix because they had no experience in the women's game, which was actually really refreshing on one end because you'd ask them something and they would kind of be like, yeah, we do that in the men's game. So yeah, that's fine. So it was just, the uptake straight away was just, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We already do that for the men's team, so we should be doing it for the women's team. Because they weren't operating under a different respect. So it was quite refreshing to have that. And they actually understood the pushbacks when we would talk about the boundaries we were facing or the struggle when, we have girls now that have to relocate to Wellington. And then, they're going to do it for however many months and then they're going to be off contract again. And then do they go back to jobs? What happens? So, they understand it and they have a real appetite to want to make this a full-time job for the girls so that they can fully focus on being a professional athlete. And they're trying to find solutions to that, which I love. So yeah, it's quite a unique space that I felt like the club understood things. We were just sometimes hamstrung by regulations and rules. I feel like it's going to change. I just feel like we're right now dealing with what has been. We work through it, but I think all leagues are very similar, and there's a lot more visibility and pushback, and people are talking up a little bit more, which is starting to push boundaries in the women's game. I think there's a real unique opportunity in the women's game. Like, look at the Champions League that are filling out the stadium in Barcelona and things like that. Look at the NWSL, who sell season tickets out in the first however many weeks, and all their merchandise is gone and everything. Like, there's crazy unique opportunities in the women's game where we need to not have to look at it as second to the men's game anymore, because I think in its own right it's starting to turn into this crazy beast.
Hey, FYI, Blake, I muted you. The sander was going on in the background. I promise to get you back up soon. So with the World Cup coming, I mean, 1 billion people watched the last Women's World Cup. I mean, I was there. I went from the knockout stages, and I tried to follow both teams, New Zealand and America, but they were like north of France, south of France. It was impossible. It was really exciting. It has this kind of sleepy feel at the moment in New Zealand. Are we going to do it? Like, what's going to happen? Is it going to go? And also, what's your role? Like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be at the draw? What are you doing?
Yeah, I feel the same way, to be honest. I feel like right now, like it's the sleeping giant that nobody really knows what's going to hit them, and everyone's like chipping away at things, and FIFA are chipping away at things, and I'm like, but this is happening soon, and this is going to be crazy, and like I'm not sure if anyone really knows what's going to happen until it's here. I do think like New Zealand will embrace it. But yeah, part of me is like, are we going to be ready? Because this is going to be crazy. But I think they'll where there's a will, there's a way, and I think the people in the background that are kind of pulling the strings and in the positions to make this happen know what's coming. I'm just not sure the public and the nation know what's coming. But yeah, it's super exciting. In terms of my role, like I don't necessarily have a specific role yet, but like I work with Yitka a lot around the ferns and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure I'll be lending my hand where I can and kind of helping out. I'm hoping that we're going to have especially from our 20s, like hopefully a good group of girls that'll push in and get involved in it, and that's the idea, you know. So yeah, I'm hoping that there'll be some involvement. I don't know what that'll look like yet, but I think either way, as a coach, as an advocate, as a fan, I'm going to be involved in some way, just by being in the country and being a part of it.
Awesome. All right, I'm unmuting you, Blake. Here we go. Oh. Jonathan, can you unmute him? You did it last time. And...
Oh, I think he's able to do it himself.
Okay.
Sorry. This will be fun going on YouTube. So finally, one of the big struggles that the team had throughout the season is the issue of their mental health and well-being, especially the most prominent person in the media regarding that was Grace Nowicki. So how important was her? How important was it for her to get her story out there and to make sure she was well cared for? And Grace, if you're watching, hello. Hope you're doing well. We'd love to have you on the show too, if you ever want to come talk.
That's awesome. Yeah, in terms of like how important it was for her to get her story out there, that was very much like led by her. We tried to create an environment where like she knew there was choice to anything she was doing. And as much as like you know, she was brave enough to come out about it and things like that, you know, it was just tough. We had multiple players that were struggling, you know. I just think there's not like I struggle with the fact that the lack of like normalization around mental health, especially in high performance sport. Like, you know, there's a lot of pressure, but then there's pressure to show strength instead of weakness, and struggles with mental health is often considered as weakness. And I find that stuff, yeah, really negatively impacting the youth that we have coming through now. So we're constantly trying to push back on it because it's so normal. Like on whatever scale, like we all suffer at some point. We're all struggling with different variations of whatever it may be on a scale. Nobody ever wakes up and is incredible every single day. We all know that. I just think it's that normalization of talking about it and doing something about it, and feeling not ashamed by admitting that you're struggling. Like Wiz is an incredible person. I've worked with her for years now. And she's an incredible athlete, an incredible player, but an amazing person. And yeah, we talked about her. You know, it was an ongoing thing. We knew coming in that she'd had struggles, but we didn't want to not invest in her when she was an incredible athlete. And I don't think, you know, struggles with mental health should be a reason that you don't get selected or don't get to be a professional athlete. And I think we showed like she was a key player for us. You know, we showed that, you know, she had struggles from before even leaving, but we showed that like if you do it in the right way, that she still was a professional athlete and she still did incredibly well. So yeah, she had the option, like we talked about. We could say it's an injury. We could say we were arresting her. We could say all these different excuses. Like ultimately, I wanted to make sure she felt like she was safe and protected, because we didn't want to get her to a point where she wasn't being honest with us anymore. But yeah, she wasn't willing to lie about it. And she had, we shared with her the Amelia Kerr article that came out on Locker Room, and that was big for her because it normalized things for her, and she was like, oh, this is happening to young women in professional sport. And she saw that, and then obviously we put her in touch with Amelia Kerr as well, which they chatted and things like that, which was awesome for Grace and incredible for Amelia to take that time. But it made her want to help other people and want to normalize it herself as well, even though she was completely petrified about it and threw away her phone and didn't want to see anything about it. But yeah, I think the fact that she was brave and able to show people that it's okay, and it happens, we wanted to give her the platform to do that. The club were amazing, and super supportive. Wanted to give her anything that she needed at the time, even when it came to us flying her home. Like, there was no questions, there was no pushback, there was nothing. It was just what was needed at the time. And we put things in place to support her with a psychologist and the things that we needed to try and help her ongoing. But it's a problem. It's big in sport. And Phoenix are actually doing a piece at the moment on it, which is amazing. Like, they're surveying all their academy athletes, and they're going through stuff there, and they're starting to realize that there's more. There's a problem that people don't think about, and they're looking now to get well-being officers in place full-time at the academy, and have good mental health processes in place for the club moving forwards. I think that's a big thing that they're really invested in doing, and I think Grace was a story as part of that. She shines light on what people aren't willing to talk about, and even players within our group, within our off-season program. People are speaking to sports psychologists, people are understanding it's okay to work through things, and it'll make them stronger for it in the future. We're all learning, we're all developing, we all go through things. So I think for me, it's just trying to create an environment where athletes can still thrive and still show what they can do and still have the ability and the platform to be professional athletes whilst also being a person and a human being at the same time. And people go through things in life that can be really difficult, and you can't always, there's an aspect of you should be able to perform all the time. That's your job. Well, that's not as easy as life ever is. So it's just trying to make sure that we can allow for that while still creating an environment that gives people the opportunity to thrive and show what they can do.
Well, thanks for being that kind of coach that you can do that. You're the new breed of coach. I'm just going to say it. You're not just yelling at people. You're listening, you're including, you're trying to get the best out of people, and it's refreshing. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're fans, of you, the team, the organization. Even when we pressed David, we had a couple interviews with David Dome, and we were like, okay, dude, so how is it, getting back to Blake's question, how is it different between the men's team and the women's team? Do they have more resources around this? And if they do, they had a chaplain. We're like, why don't the women have a chaplain? These are all things that, even though, maybe women do it a little bit better around listening, but there's also equity around just the resources that a men's team might have and a women's team might have. And, we're thrilled that you're at the helm and pushing these things too. And as fans, we're right behind you, that they are, your players are humans, and we were thrilled that the team was taking this on as something that's real. And I've seen you on TV and different things talking about this, and every time I'm moved by it, because there's a lot of other coaches that that's just not their job.
Yeah, and I think I understand that, and I'm definitely a different head coach in that respect, and especially whilst being away in Australia. But we also put players in that situation. I selected a bunch of 18-year-olds and asked their parents to be okay with them leaving home. And that to me comes with the responsibility of making sure that they're going to be okay as well. So I think, yeah, and it goes back to my philosophy of coaching anyway, with trust, with creating a good relationship, with giving them ownership, that comes with more than just the output that you get on the field. It then means that they're willing to come and speak to you and if they're struggling, or and whether sometimes that's just with performance, or that's just with things that they're not quite understanding, or they're frustrated on the field, or there's things going on. But sometimes that's other stuff, and you don't realize until you're in it. But yeah, it was this unique kind of, I guess, scenario that we were in. But yeah, I think I wouldn't know how to do it any different. I think as you climb up into more high performance space, you're probably encouraged to distance yourself a little bit more and have more separation, because you have to make really tough calls that don't always go your way. And when you have good relationships with your players, that's harder to do. But I still think I don't think I'd be authentic to who I am, or I don't think I'd be good at my job if I strayed away from that. It's just knowing and being comfortable making tough decisions, even though I care about the players and I care about them as people. So sometimes that conversation or those decisions of whether it be dropping people, even now, like having to make decisions around not everyone is gonna get a contract. I want to give everyone a contract. That's not the way professional football works. Those are going to be tough conversations. But I feel like, and really hard because of the relationships I have with the players. But yeah, hopefully there's a lot of understanding in that, and it can still go hand in hand with high performance sport.
So now that we'll be seeing a bit more of you as the month and year goes on, because we've recently joined up to like media list so that we can come and see you and stuff like that. How great for you is it to, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but if you could elaborate a tiny bit more before we go, how important is it to have not just the mainstream media, but people like us that have podcasts and stuff wanting to join the media industry too, and the smaller platforms wanting to grow bigger to be like News Hub or Stuff or TVNZ, etc., etc.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Like, and we really appreciate it. I also think that the difference from a platform like this as well, and especially like I would encourage like players to come on this and speak to you guys and things like that, because it's like exposure to kind of like, I guess, the positive side of things as well. Like sometimes you don't always get that with the media, and we were very lucky last year, but I don't know that we're going to be so lucky this year. You know, there's more expectations on us, so the friendly experience or understanding of losing every week might not be there anymore. But I think, yeah, platforms like this that give players, like I said, an opportunity to kind of like build their brand in a really positive way, that they're able to have a voice and feel kind of safe in what they're able to talk about, because you know they're not afraid of kind of being, you know, talked or kind of questioned in a way that they're going to give some strange answers, or feel like somebody's after this all important information. And sometimes they can be really nervous in the media in that respect of like not wanting to say the wrong thing. But I think when it's like almost like a fan based driven thing, I think it allows a lot more ownership in kind of what they can say, but also like that safe environment to feel like it's a positive place and everyone wants the same thing, and you guys want them to succeed and they want to do you guys proud. And I think, yeah, having that sort of exposure and visibility for the players and for the team is really big in that respect. And any sort of kind of positive media kind of influences we can have for the girls also really helps, because they get so nervous and they're not used to it and they're still young and they're still learning. But yeah, to be a successful athlete, especially as a female, like if you can build your brand, if you can build your following and kind of have a reputation within like the media and the public, it'll really help. So we're constantly trying to educate and help them in that respect as well. I think platforms like this are incredible for that.
Thank you.
Well, sorry, Blake. Just Gemma, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just have a quiet word in Lily Alford's ear, we would love that. She's like number 2 behind you on our list of people we really,
sweet.
really want
She'd
to
love
speak
to do it. Yeah, no, I'll definitely tell her. But yeah, you should chat to Brenton. I'm sure he can tee it up. But Lily will jump at it.
We the next time we'll probably see you will be the opening of the new complex, hopefully. So, is there anything you'd like to say before, in closing to the fans before we end this recording?
Yeah, I just want to thank them for everything last year. Like, in extreme circumstances, yeah, it was so amazing to have the support. And as much as we weren't in New Zealand and we weren't able to feel it as much, the messages that were coming through, the opportunities that the players were having to kind of feel that from kind of players, parents, and everybody else that's around was incredible, and often gave them like another level almost when things were tough. And I think the understanding of how we were playing, and yeah, sometimes that didn't necessarily come in results, but I think people understanding that the players were being brave and learning and developing was huge, and made them want to like be brave and express themselves on the field. Sometimes that can be really hard when you're worried about all the judgment that comes from it. But when they were feeling so supported, like, you have people like Alyssa that don't care and will take on whoever because they feel like they can be brave, they can be expansive in what they do. And a lot of that is because of the media support and because of the fans getting behind them and enjoying what they were doing, whether that was coming with a result or whether that was coming with just some really awesome expressive play. That went a long way for the players. So I really, really appreciate everything that the fans did for us last season and hope to continue to do this season.
Well, thank you for coming on today, Gemma, and for the people watching at home, don't forget to like and subscribe this video so you can see who else we get to come on the show and join us and have a cool chat like this. So like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.